Hello and welcome back to another segment of Get Outside St. Tammany. My name is Will Afton and I'm the County Extension Agent for the LSU Ag Center here in St. Tammany Parish, and I'm here to talk to you about flowers and color plants for your full sun gardens and flower beds. I've brought a selection of plants for us to talk about today. As you can see here, when it comes to full sun plants, we have a lot of choices. So you know, it's easy to become overwhelmed by looking at all these options on the tables at the garden center. But hopefully after today, we'll have at least a little better idea of some things that you should be looking at. Keep in mind that we're in the warm season, so we're looking for warm season flowers. Usually by June, we shouldn't see any leftover cool season flowers, but sometimes you never know what's on that back sale rack. So basically, you know, like I said, everything here is for full sun. So we're looking for at least 6 to 8 hours of full direct sunlight. The more, the better. The more shade you have, these things typically just won't bloom as much. The plants will stretch a little bit. So hopefully we do have adequate sun and we can get the most out of our choices here today. You know, whether it's an in-the-ground bed or if you're short on space and you're big into container gardening, either of these plants can work in both situations as long as we got that full 6 to 8 hours of sunlight to work with. Just kind of starting out on the top, this tender perennial here, this is blue days, very common to see in the springtime, but you'll get these blue flowers somewhat all season long. Blue days is kind of a nice mounding plant. Usually about 12 inches tall, 12 inches wide. It's got a nice kind of silvery tone to it, and those blue flowers open and close with the sun. So in the evening, you'll notice they're all tightened up like they are now. Very colorful plants in the landscape here. Probably some of the most intense color you can get out of a full sun plant are celosias. And celosias are old-time garden favorites. Usually a lot with our old-time favorites, our popular plants, you see a lot of different cultivars. And here we have a selection of 4 different cultivars. This is typically what people know of as celosia, the Indian paintbrush plant. This one too, this is the old name for this one. People call it coxcomb. But here's some newer selections, and this one here is the Intense Classic series. The Intense Classic celosia tends to bloom a little bit longer. It's got a little brighter colors. It stands out amongst celosias in the garden. It stood out so much that we actually selected it as an LSU Ag Center super plant. It did well at research stations across the state and was rated by gardeners as one of the top performing celosias in the trial. After 2 years of study, it was selected by the committee to actually be a super plant of 2018, of just last year. So definitely you want to try some celosias to get some really good color out of the garden. One of my favorite plants is typically, I don't know, I don't see it so often, but I'm starting to see it a lot more and more and more, is this gomphrena. As you can see here, gomphrena, these globe-like flowers stand out in the landscape. They kind of give it that fairy tale effect. It's when used properly, I mean, it really adds some mysticism to your flower bed. So it's always it's good to mix in different textures, different flower forms, because it makes everything stand out a little bit better. And using gomphrena is one way to do that. You know, a lot of this was spent on, we're talking about flowers, but you also got to look at foliage colors, leaf textures, and coleus are great at adding texture to the garden. Can kind of contrast some of those finer elements. These big coarse leaves, colorful. I brought 2 selections with you here, but in all reality there's many different color combinations within coleus. All of them are very easy to grow. And one side note, one of my favorite things about coleus is it's very easy to propagate by stem cuttings. So if your neighbor has a coleus and you really like that specific color, you know, ask for permission, go cut a couple of pieces of stem, and you can easily start your own plants. But like I said, a lot of different colors out there available, so just, you know, look and see what's available to you, or in the end, borrow from your neighbor. Just focusing down a little bit here, since we're talking about different foliage textures, foliage colors. This right here is ornamental sweet potato vine. It's the same plant as what they you know, grow in the big fields, those sweet potatoes that we harvest in the fall. This one here, this just has a showier vine. It's got a lot of ornamental value. This particular one, this lime green color, is called Marguerite. It's probably one of the more popular ones out there, but you'll see a lot of dark purples. I've even seen some multicolored foliage sweet potato vines, but the one thing about sweet potato vine, it gives you that coarse texture, but it also gives you that overflowing like growth habit. So these vines hang out over the sides of containers and provide a nice little spillover effect. They also can make a great ground cover for a big flower bed. So if you need to cover a lot of ground with vegetation and you want it to look pretty, you want it to stand out, definitely you can use sweet potato vine to do that. Just continuing on here, right here you see this is Angelonia. This is the Serena series of Angelonia, and like the Celosia from earlier, this is also one of our very first super plants when we started the program back in 2010. Angelonias are known as summer snapdragons. As you can see here, they have small or tall flower spikes, very similar to a snapdragon, but just smaller flowers. Snapdragons are grown in the fall, and then they really showcase in the spring. But these Angelonias, we get those planted, usually about April, May, and we can grow them all throughout the summer. So heat is not an issue with the Angelonia plant. Very good plant. Down in front here, the daisy-like flowers, those are gazanias. Good full sun plant. As you can see, nice, beautiful, intricate flowers. Just kind of moving right along here, begonias. Begonias work well in the sun, especially these bronze leaf begonias and green leaf begonias. I like begonias because they have a nice lush foliage texture. They produce a flower, and they're just they're heat tolerant plants. So they're not fazed by the high temperatures in the summertime. Looking for something a little taller here, we have Phlox paniculata. Just real bright colors, a summertime bloomer, very attractive, the tall growing phlox. Down in front there, the coarse textured plants like sweet potato vine, coleus, they kind of get all the credit when it comes to texture, but sometimes you need to go the other way and you need to get a very fine texture. And this euphorbia down below, this one's called Diamond Frost, a very popular trendy plant. I see it a lot in mixed containers. Looks good next to a coarse leaf plant of a darker green color, but euphorbia has a small white flower, but it's primarily grown for that texture you get, as you can see there. And then, of course, talking about, full sun flowers to use in the flower bed or container gardens in South Louisiana, you can't forget about vinca. Vinca, or the old name periwinkle, is kind of what everybody thinks about when they think of full season flowers. There's a lot of different colors. Vinca is another popular plant. So here we just have this is the Cora series. Gets about between 12 and 16 inches tall by the end of the season. Literally blooms from planting until the first frost date. The only times you ever see problems with vinca is when you shade them out and their feet stay wet. So, fix those two issues there and you'll have a long-lasting vinca crop. But there's actually a lot more out there. There's trailing types of vinca. There's new micro vincas out there with really small, fine flowers. Like I've said in the past, popular flowers, there's a lot of breeding going on, so we get a lot of different combinations. But this is just really scratching the surface when it comes to full sun planting for the flower beds. If you have any more questions or want to run a plant problem by me, a garden problem, feel free to contact us at the local number 985-875-2635. You also have a great reference at your fingertips, www.lsuagcenter.com. And then also the local Master Gardener group is full of a lot of educational resources, and we put on a lot of events, and information about the local Master Gardener Association can be found out at www.stmastergardener.org.